10 years ago, Five Nights at Freddy's came out, and redefined the indie horror genre. After over a dozen games, dozens of books, countless pieces of merchandise, and even the long-awaited movie possibly marking the beginning of a trilogy, the franchise, spearheaded by Scott Cawthon, is still going strong. And to celebrate this, I made this video. Enter the Happy Pizzeria, a Five Nights at Freddy's alternate universe over a year in the making. What started out as an original fan universe based on concepts from Five Nights evolved into a full-fledged AU featuring the Happy Pizzeria, another brand owned by the Happy Pizzeria's owner known as the Nightfall Diner, and even a retelling of Five Nights in the form of Fazbear's, with binds that tie them all together in a cohesive AU consisting of 19 games and 4 books. This video will be in the form of Game Theory's full, now outdated, FNAF timeline, starting from the beginning to the very end. As information is given, the name of a game or book the information is from will appear at the bottom left corner of the screen, so you know what part of the timeline we are on. Without further ado, let's begin. We start at the beginning, where important characters start their journey through life and the roots of this story are established. The year is 1951, and the very first important figure was born in a London hospital to a poor family. His name was William Afton. In 1952, Edward West was born in Salt Lake City, Utah. In 1954, Henry Emily would be born in New Harmony, Utah. In 1955, Mr. Happy would be born in Three Forks, Montana. Before we begin the timeline, it may be appropriate to dive into these characters in more detail, starting with William Afton. William Afton was born in the year 1951 in London, England to poor parents. Growing up, William's family had very little, and was barely able to keep a roof over their heads. By 1961, a 10-year-old William had a great interest in the budding world of robotics. By 1966, William was in secondary school, and was already making small little robots, fueling his interest even more. For the time being, this is where we will stop for William and shift gears to Edward West. Edward had a more fortunate life, born in 1952 in Salt Lake City, Utah to parents who, while not filthy rich, lived comfortably. Edward didn't grow up with an interest in robots. In fact, he actually wanted to be an actor. However, he didn't have what it took to be an actor, after not doing so well in many of his performances. It was then that Edward realized he could still entertain people when he discovered animatronics. He would later meet someone that would help his dreams come true. But for now, let's talk about a famous entrepreneur who is also from Utah. In the year 1954, Henry Emily would be born. He hailed from a modest family who loved the great outdoors. Hunting, camping, and fishing were all commonplace activities in the early days of the Emily family. By 1970, Henry took up an interest in robotics, and drew out the concept design for what would later become Fredbear. We now have one more character to go through before we can finally begin the timeline. Mr. Happy, which is the only name everyone knows him by, would be born in Three Forks, Montana in 1955. His life was similar to Henry's in the fact that he came from a modest outdoor-loving family. However, his interest in robots would come much earlier in his life. He was a natural, and his first fully functional endoskeleton would be built by the time he was 15. This would later be the basis for the endoskeleton design featured in the animatronics from the Happy Pizzeria Joyful Band from the 1975 location. And without further ado, we begin the greater timeline with the 70s. The 70s would begin with a birth in the Afton family. William had married Clara Lewis, now Clara Afton, who came from a rich family, and the two shared her wealth. William was going through mechanical engineering classes in uni to further his interest in robotics. The two of them gave birth to their first child, Michael Afton. Meanwhile, Edward West's family moved to Three Forks, Montana, where he would go through his senior year of high school and meet sophomore Mr. Happy for the first time. Edward even partnered with Mr. Happy and designed the concepts for what would later become the Joyful Band. Happy the Bear, Lily the Rabbit, Max the Mouse, and Benny the Bird. 1975 would mark a huge year for the Afton family. Clara would give birth to her second child, Elizabeth Afton, and they would move to the United States. Mr. Happy, now an engineering student and entrepreneur, would prepare to open the first Happy Pizzeria location the same year, and his business partner Edward wasn't happy. Mr. Happy unfortunately did not give enough credit to Edward for the animatronic designs as far as Edward was concerned. The very first location for the Happy Pizzeria would feature the first versions of Happy the Bear, Lily the Rabbit, Max the Rat, and Benny the Bird, who would be called the Joyful Band. As Mr. Happy worked on the animatronics, he would notice they started to act weird. For one whole week, Mr. Happy worked tirelessly to fix the bugs, which later turned out to be intentionally created by Edward as a distraction. Happy Pizzeria opens, and 10 days later, a tragic fire burns the place down and results in the death of 5 children. Now before we continue, let me explain Mr. Happy's dual-function animatronic. His name was Phoenix, the first animatronic to carry the name. The dual-function suit was very similar to the Fredbear's Family Diner Springlock animatronics introduced a year later. The endoskeleton inside the suit could be expanded to allow a person to wear the animatronic suit in addition to operating as a standalone animatronic. Now, as he was a concept design, he would not be used, and remained in storage. Now Edward seemed to have caused the fire intentionally to ruin Mr. Happy's success. He attempted to escape inside the Phoenix suit to keep his identity concealed. However, he didn't escape, as the locks were triggered and he burned in the fire, in spring-lock failure agony. This is where his story will end, for now. The same year, Henry and William would be the first to actually patent a spring-lock suit design. Each person had their own character to bring to the table. Henry would use his concept design and rework it into Fredbear. William came up with a rabbit character named Bonnie, and the two would be made into fully functional spring-lock animatronics named Fredbear and Spring Bunny, with the two planning to perform wearing their own characters. Fredbear's Family Diner would open the following year in New Harmony, Utah. People loved watching the animatronics perform in both animatronic programming-based mode and in performance mode, worn by William and Henry. That combined with the raging popularity of the dawning arcade scene and pizza made Fredbear's the talk of New Harmony and the surrounding area as a whole. 1977 and 1978 saw the birth of Charlotte and Sammy Emily, and Evan Afton respectively. Fredbear's and the lives of the Emily and Afton families flourished into the 80s. Happiness wouldn't last forever, as several tragedies occurred in this decade. To start the 80s on a happy note, however, Mr. Happy planned to give a home to the children that burned in the fire. Believing in this supernatural, he realized the burned remains of the Joyful Band, which shouldn't be able to operate, were coming online at night. Mr. Happy decided to redesign the original endoskeletons and redesign Happy, Lily, Max, and Benny to give them fresh new looks. He also created an animatronic-only version of Phoenix the Fox for the first time due to having a remaining endoskeleton that also seemed to act up at night. In 1982, the second Happy Pizzeria opened with the newly redesigned characters, with public outcry from within the Three Forks community who believe Happy Pizzeria should have remained a thing of the past after the mass casualty fire from a few years ago. However, the outcry simmered down as the new pizzeria became all the rage. While the children possessing the animatronics rested during the day while the animatronics performed according to their programming, a new night guard has to deal with the animatronics during the evening hours. At this time of the day, the souls of the children have awoken. Seeing as the guard was an adult, and the children had no idea who wore the old Phoenix costume, they targeted the guard. Complaints from the guard after his first week caused an investigation that led to the shutdown of Happy Pizzeria. In 1983, Henry and William expanded the Fredbear's empire. They created a sister location called Fredbear and Friends in Hurricane, Utah, not too far from New Harmony, as well as a nationwide animated TV show of the same name with action figures and toys to go along with it. The new location also featured new animatronic characters based on the TV show characters, named Foxy and Chica, as well as new versions of Fredbear and Spring Bonnie named Freddy Fazbear and Bonnie, all four being normal animatronics as opposed to spring-lock suits. The location also featured an animatronic-only version of Fredbear. The spring-lock animatronics proved to have bugs. Their limited security features could be kept in check when maintenance crews were there. However, during closing hours, no one was there to keep the security systems in check, so they would often target the night guard. Tragedy struck twice in 1983. Evan Afton was terrified of the animatronics his father and goduncle made, so it was quite the shock when the Afton family decided to celebrate his birthday at Fredbear's family diner. Michael wasn't the best brother, always wearing a Fredbear and Friends foxy mask to terrorize Evan at home. On Evan's birthday, Michael and his friends, wearing masks based on the other Fredbear and Friends characters, would pull a terrible prank that went too far. They carried Evan to Fredbear and put Evan in Fredbear's jaw. The moisture from the terrified child's tears would trigger the spring locks in Fredbear's jaw, causing the mechanisms to snap, with the jaw crushing Evan's head. This would be known as the Bite of '83. Fredbear's was set to close. However, there was one more birthday to be held, for Charlie. On this rainy day, bullies that terrorized Charlie showed up to the party and locked her outside behind the diner, also putting weight on the new security puppet animatronics box so she couldn't come out and interfere. Coincidentally, William Afton pulls up. Knowing there were no cameras around the back of the pizzeria, he saw this as an opportunity to get even with Henry, stabbing his own godniece to death and leaving her body. When the puppet finally emerges, she goes outside to save Charlie, but it's too late. As the puppet touches Charlie's dying body, she comforted her until her final breath, and her soul passed into the puppet. William Afton has had his first kill, and it changed him forever. Fredbear's family diner shuts down, and with no reason to remain in his hometown of New Harmony, a grieving Henry moves to Hurricane to keep Fredbear and Friends afloat. In 1985, Henry decided to leave the Fredbear name behind. He rebranded the company to Fazbear Entertainment, and renamed Fredbear and Friends to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. The animatronic-only Fredbear would also be renamed to Golden Freddy, with his purple hat and bow tie replaced with black ones to match Freddy and be reprogrammed as a new character. By this point, William has left the company and Clara divorced him due to Evan's death and how cold William has become, but he wasn't done. He wanted to make as many people feel what he felt. William knew what kids would be attending a party the following week. Seeing one of the kids' dog, Susie's, in the road, he ran over the dog with his car, killing him, feeling like it would be a perfect lure for Susie. He would hide the dog inside Chica's cupcake. The following week, on June 26, 1985, William would sneak into the safe room in Freddy's and put on the Spring Bonnie spring lock suit. He approached Susie and told her he knew where her dog was. Trusting Spring Bonnie, Susie would follow him into a back room. He told her he would be right back and lured her friends Gabrielle, Jeremy, Fritz, and the birthday girl Cassidy into the room before killing them all. After hours, as the missing children bulletins were going up, he would deactivate the camera systems and hide their bodies inside the animatronics and clean up the mess. No one ever knew it was him, and this incident would be known as the Missing Children Incident. The puppet, who had been moved to Freddy's after a slight redesign, now possessed by the soul of Charlotte Emily, would help the souls of the children possess the animatronics. Cassidy's anger was so great that her supernatural rage and power turned Golden Freddy into an ethereal supernatural entity that could transition back and forth between the physical and ethereal realms, both visibly and physically. As complaints of rotting meat and human excrement smells coming from the animatronics arose as the weeks went by, Freddy's shut down. The animatronics were cleaned out and Fazbear Entertainment covered up the fact that the bodies were found inside the animatronics by claiming to have found them buried near the pizzeria. On the final week of July, a man going by the name of Vincent Adams would become a night guard at the abandoned location. His long hair was dyed purple and tied back into a ponytail, a look that caused people to give him the nickname Purple Guy. His daytime co-worker also noted that he also seemed to have an obsession with toast. It turns out that Vincent was actually William Afton, who under a new identity was trying to understand why the animatronics were acting strange as reported by previous night guards. Once he realizes they are possessed, he quickly quits after a week on the job. Also in 1985, Mr. Happy decided to try again. Contacting an animatronic technician named Dr. Joy, he commissioned a series of highly advanced animatronics, who were all sleek white with accent colors, who had panels all over their faces and bodies that could be opened for easy maintenance access while also giving them a futuristic look, and the face panels often twitched about as the animatronics performed. These would be the Party Time animatronics for the new Party Time pizza place, and the animatronics had powerful AI for better interaction with guests. While Happy and Phoenix both had Party Time versions of themselves introduced, Happy was not the leader this time. Harmony the deer would be the leader of the Party Time band, along with two fellow new characters Lucky the dog and Bongo the monkey. However, something was wrong. Their lifelike behavior ended up causing the animatronics to become sentient. While they weren't soul-possessed, they gained a sense of awareness as they learned. However, there was a problem. Dr. Joy was unaware that she was an accessory to possible future crimes. She worked for a company named Afton Robotics. Yes, a company created by William Afton. William programmed these animatronics to learn and adapt, and once they became aware, a hidden program was awakened that would turn them into killing machines. Afton wanted more children to die, and no one would suspect the MCI and the killing of kids in another state entirely to be connected. Fortunately, Dr. Joy catches on and warns Mr. Happy, and Mr. Happy would close Party Time pizza place down before anything could happen. However, Dr. Joy didn't realize William intentionally programmed this, so it was passed on as a major unfixable bug. Afton's reign of terror would continue in Hurricane as well. Around the time Afton Robotics created the Party Time animatronics for Happy Bear's fun and entertainment, William decided to launch his own sister location to Freddy's with similar animatronics, the Fun Times, consisting of Fun Time versions of Freddy and Foxy, with Chica absent and Bonnie's role diminished to a partner mini animatronic for Fun Time Freddy, who all take a backseat to new animatronics Circus Baby and Ballora. When a child named Isabel is killed by Baby, the location is shut down. A night guard position is opened up during the investigation, and is taken by a new unnamed night guard, who we later find out is Isabel's big brother, who took the job to find out what is going on. He soon finds out that 4 other children went missing around the time of Isabel's death, and also discovers the animatronics have been possessed. They eventually combine into Ennard, and their plan to escape is to gut his insides and use him as a skin suit, which they successfully do via the Scooper, a device created by Afton to harness remnant from the animatronics to achieve his second goal, immortality. However, in his last moments of self-control, he burns the pizzeria down, destroying both Ennard and his own body so they could never escape and wreak havoc. In 1986, in a final attempt for Afton Robotics to stay afloat, William would enter an abandoned Fredbear's sister location never open and left to rot to salvage the animatronics that exist here. This place was called Mytho Safari. These animatronics were different versions of the Fredbear and Friends crew, infused with traits of mythological creatures. Freddy is a bear and griffin hybrid, Bonnie is a rabbit and minotaur hybrid, Chica was a phoenix instead of a chicken, and Foxy was a dragon and fox hybrid. One animatronic, however, was not a mythological creature. Shadowclaw the jaguar. There would be an incident here. William brought his daughter Elizabeth. Curious when she sees this new animatronic, she accidentally activates it and gets swiped by the sharp claws on Shadowclaw's hand, killing Elizabeth instantly in an accident known as the Slash of 86. She would go on to possess Shadowclaw. In 1987, Henry, now running the company on his own, decided to create a new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. While he would keep the old, now dilapidated animatronics in the employees-only parts and service room, the new location would see a new generation of the Fazbear Band in the form of the toy animatronics. And several changes were brought about. For the characters, Foxy's gender was changed to female in order to have an equal male-female split in the band, and with the introduction of Balloon Boy, Henry also made a female version named JJ, which would be shortened to just 2 letter J's. Henry wanted to make sure another incident like the MCI would never happen again, so these animatronics were programmed with advanced facial recognition software, which was tied to a criminal database and allowed these animatronics to recognize a predator from a mile away. Toy Foxy would eventually become a take-apart put-back-together attraction after engineers got tired of fixing Toy Foxy after every shift, and would be renamed to Mangle. At some point, Jeremy Fitzgerald signed on as the night guard. Now, unknowingly to anyone, the original animatronics, which should no longer be operational, were still possessed by the children. And the puppet, possessed by Charlie, had some plans up her sleeve. To her, any adult in a Fazbear's outfit could be William Afton. By this point, Charlie and Cassidy have joined forces to lead and guide the children towards their goal of finding and killing the man that murdered them all, using their supernatural powers, which were much stronger than those of the other children. They messed with the systems of the toy animatronics, artificially making them act out like vengeful spirits, slowly growing more aggressive over the week. Jeremy had to deal with all 12 animatronics at the establishment. A moment of betrayal would strike Jeremy, as he developed a strong friendship with Mangle. As the toys became more aggressive at the end of the week, Mangle's malfunctions due to her condition made this worse for her specifically, and towards the end of Jeremy's shift on November 15, 1987, Mangle would swing down and bite Jeremy, severely damaging but not completely destroying the frontal lobe of his brain. Fazbear's would close down again, and so does this chapter of the story. Michael Afton, consumed by the guilt caused by Evan's death, has grown a little in those 7 years. More mature now, Michael wanted to atone for his actions. He learned that the animatronics in the abandoned Mytho Safari location were moving around when they should be deactivated, somehow following the will of Shadowclaw. He knew Elizabeth died to Shadowclaw, and realized she may be behind this. He would apply to become a guard for the unknown outsourced company guarding the abandoned location to find answers and possibly free his sister's soul as redemption. Things don't go as planned, however. Shadowclaw, possessed by Elizabeth, and her animatronic servants would lure Michael down to the basement, where a cancelled Fredbear's Springlock character named Rex would be stored. Michael would be lured into the suit, which would have its spring locks intentionally triggered by Elizabeth. This would be the end of Michael's story. For now, in 1991, Mr. Happy would begin to experience nightmares about the fire of 75. In these nightmares, he makes his way into the burning pizzeria to save the joyful animatronics. But instead of being met by the joyful band, he finds burned nightmarish versions of the animatronics from the 1982 location. While the children were thankful to Mr. Happy for giving them homes inside the second version of his animatronics from '82 in the waking world, Mr. Happy's guilt twisted the children into these nightmarish beings in his nightmares. He would discover that the only way to clear his mind and stop these nightmares is that he must face the guilt, come to terms with the events that occurred, and let the past die. In 1992, things would get extremely paranormal, bordering the unexplainable. It had been 10 years since the 1982 location of the Happy Pizzeria closed down. Rumors about the animatronics still active and being possessed by the victims of the fire spread rapidly, so a paranormal investigator was sent to the abandoned site. The investigator would come across the withered, broken-down animatronics. He would discover that, by Mr. Happy letting the spirits reside within these animatronics, he unintentionally opened the portal to a dimension called the flip side. What the investigator would soon find out is that the souls are trapped within this dimension and can't move on, and Mr. Happy has also been trapped, becoming mentally insane and hostile towards the investigator, who would eventually find a way to close the portal, free the souls, and save Mr. Happy. Mr. Happy would then go on to retire. But that retirement would not be permanent. More on that later. In 1993, Fazbear Entertainment goes through its third public rebrand, redesigning the original 1985 cast with fresh new designs. Mike Schmidt, a young person trying to make ends meet, gets hired on as the night guard. He would soon realize the animatronics are still possessed by the souls of the children who William Afton murdered 8 years prior. Mike would spend the next week fighting for his life against the souls wanting revenge against their killer. On the final evening of that week, the day shift night guard Dave Miller, who is yet another alias for William Afton, sneaks in to destroy the animatronics. However, they corner him in the safe room. And as he hides in the old costume he wore to kill them, something happens and the spring locks would snap, violently and painfully entombing him in the spring bunny suit forever. And in a surprise move, Henry Emily comes out of the shadows and orders the room to be sealed off. Though he would tell people different, he knew William was in that costume, and he knew he would be stuck in here, left to rot forever. The 2000s, a new millennium, and hopes and dreams of the unimaginable are on the horizon for many. However, for Mr. Happy, things would go wrong. Things would start great for Mr. Happy, who would have a daughter with his wife in 2003. At this time, he also decided to come out of retirement when he learned of a group of circus animatronics called the Twilight Troupe were put up for sale when their theme park owners shut down. In 2004, the sale would be finalized and Mr. Happy would open Nightfall Diner, featuring a band of old 70s animatronics resembling those created by Showbiz Pizza. Their names were Luna the Owl, Shadow the Cat, Ember the Fox, and Aurora the Bear. A night guard named Jacob would get hired in. He would notice, in typical FNAF-style fashion, that the animatronics would act more erratic as the week went on. He would also discover the reason the theme park shut down, the mysterious accidental deaths of 4 people. Jacob would fight for his life to get through his week-long tenure, and after voicing his concerns, the diner would shut down. In 2006, Mr. Happy would try again with a new facility and a redesigned Twilight Troupe. A new person named Emily would step into the night guard position. The issues with the original animatronics unfortunately were not solved. An entity calling itself the Shadow corrupted the animatronics, turning them into machines out for blood. Emily would find herself trying to survive, and would eventually come head-to-head with the Shadow, challenging his control over the Twilight Troupe. She would win, and the Shadow would be defeated. Until 2009. By now, lack of business would shutter the 2006 location. We once again visit a new location 3 years later with a once again refreshed set of animatronics. Ethan is the new night guard, and he decides to delve into the history of the performers that died at the amusement park and possessed the animatronics when he notices the animatronics develop their personalities. Serafina was a trapeze artist, and she died when the lines that kept her from falling to her death snapped, sending her crashing to the floor. She would possess Luna. Marcel the magician disappeared as part of an act, but he literally disappeared and was never found again. He would possess Shadow. Ignatius the fire eater's staffs spontaneously flared up, burning him to death. He would possess Ember. Helena the strong woman would die when one of her own steel beams fell on and crushed her. She would possess Aurora. Ethan would soon come face to face with the Shadow, who would reveal he caused their deaths. Ethan would defeat him temporarily. The location again closes down. Since there was only one event in the 2010s, we will just cover that now. 2 years later, Mr. Happy would try again one more time. The new night guard, Alex, would discover more information about the Shadow. He was a disgruntled employee named Samuel that was once loyal to the amusement park, but would soon feel he was treated unjustly. Taken over by anger, his physical form would change, corrupted by the substance known as agony, the same natural substance created by the fear, sadness, and anger from William Afton's victims. The souls within the Shadow grow restless and cry for release, as their last shreds of being are being controlled by the Shadow within the animatronics. In a final showdown, Alex is able to reach out to the Shadow, who sought vengeance against those responsible for his downfall, and helped Samuel rediscover what was left of his humanity. The souls trapped within him are freed, and they reconnect with their essences inside the animatronics and finally move on. We later discover the reason Mr. Happy kept opening new Nightfall Diner locations. Once he knew the animatronics were possessed, he wanted to keep the company going until someone who knew how to set the souls free would set them free. And with the souls freed, Nightfall Diner would close for the final time. And with that, both Happy Bear's fun and entertainment and Fazbear Entertainment would fade away, becoming nothing but public childhood memories and urban legends, until the 2020s. Everything has been quiet as far as anything to do with the two companies is concerned, until Mr. Happy decides to come out of retirement and make a horror attraction based on his old franchise. However, Those who are tasked with collecting relics for the location end up with something completely unexpected: Phoenix Trap, possessed by the soul whose body was spring-locked inside. Edward West, an unnamed guard, takes the job at what he and the rest of the town believes is a simple horror attraction. However, he begins to notice this isn't the case. Poor ventilation causes him to see hallucinations of the animatronics he saw as a child, and Phoenix Trap lurks around. The guard has to do everything he can to not go insane or be murdered by the very person that caused the company's downfall all those years ago. The place burns down, and Phoenix Trap escapes. In 2022, an old abandoned factory unexplainably roars back to life. Unknown to everyone, Phoenix Trap is creating new terrifying versions of Happy, Lily, Max, Benny, and Phoenix. Known as the Malevolents, these animatronics are violent killing machines void of personality, designed only to kill anyone who had wronged Edward in the past. Mr. Happy plans on destroying these animatronics before they can cause any harm and putting a stop to Edward once and for all. In a final confrontation against Phoenix Trap, he tries to use the factory equipment to crush Mr. Happy, but Mr. Happy in turn shoves the human-animatronic hybrid into the machinery, finally putting an end to Edward West himself for the final time. In 2023, Henry, Emily, and Michael Afton, now a spring-locked human-animatronic hybrid known as Extinction, enter an old Fazbear distribution center warehouse with one purpose in mind: to put an end to the Fazbear legacy forever. The warehouse contains fractured versions of the 1993 animatronics, the Puppet, Shadowclaw, Fredbear, and Springtrap, containing the souls of the 5 children: Charlotte Emily, Elizabeth Afton, Evan Afton, and William Afton respectively. William made up with Elizabeth, who has become William's loyal first hand. Evan was driven by the desire to get revenge on Michael. The 5 children were somehow convinced by William that Henry was their killer, and Charlie only fights alongside them to protect the children even though she knows William killed both her and them. However, Charlie knows what her father and Michael are doing. Since the children would be safe and freed regardless, she joins her father and fictive cousin's side halfway through the week-long process. Together, they stand against the fractures and burn the facility down. The missing children and the Afton children finally see peace, as well as Michael. Henry willingly lets his own life go, and William is finally dead for good. However, the story for Freddy's is not over yet. It is early 2024. An investigation is led to find the cause of the fire that burned down the distribution center, but what they would find is unexpected, to say the least. And it even led to the disappearance of many officers. Enter Vanessa Shelley, the next officer volunteering for the investigation. Upon entering the location, she would discover ghostly versions of the animatronics that burned in the fire. In addition to Mangle and Balloon Boy, these phantoms were created out of agony, specifically the agony from the missing children, Evan and Elizabeth Afton, Charlie Emily, Jeremy Fitzgerald from the Bite of 87, which explains Mangle, and an unknown source for Balloon Boy. They would try to kill Vanessa, who would later find a computer, which held a digital recreation of the man that single-handedly brought the company to its knees, William Afton. Though this recreation didn't recreate him as human, instead, it was an anthropomorphized version of the Spring Bonnie suit. And he gave himself a new name, Glitch Trap. Glitch Trap gives Vanessa the same ultimatum as the rest of the officers: pass the tests, or perish. But passing the tests activates the Glitch Trap program, allowing him to take control of both nearby technology linked to the computer and into her mind. 2 years later, Vanny would uncover the old Springtrap remains, bringing it to a new location set to open. Under the direction of the last of kin in both the Emily and Afton families, Sammy Emily, Fazbear Entertainment makes one final attempt at a return and rebrand, featuring the new 4.0 versions of the original 4 plus 3 new characters: Sparky the dog, Razor the wolf, and Alex the gator. Unbeknownst to everyone, the reluctant follower Vanny and Glitch Trap remained under the location, with Glitch Trap given some form of physical presence by Vanny through a hologram system throughout the building. Glitch Trap, adopting the William Afton name, plans to control the animatronics and adopt them as his own children, like he had done Vanny, as one big family. The new night guard Mike Schmidt Jr., the son of Mike Schmidt, begins his night shift duty as the hacked animatronics target him. But what no one knew is that Vanny was giving Afton the rebirth he desired by uploading Glitchtrap to the remains of Springtrap. Mike and Glitchtrap, as Firetrap, would stand off against each other, which would eventually lead to the collapse of the building around them as it burns down. Mike and a newly freed Vanessa would end up trapped inside. Later, Vanessa reveals to Mike that there is a backup Glitchtrap AI in the files of the computer that contain the original program, and if they can find the computer, they could reverse engineer it into an entity that can destroy Glitchtrap once and for all. Once they find it, Vanessa tells Mike all he has to do is ward off the children of Afton while she reprograms the backup file. Mike originally turns her down, but Vanessa tells him it's the only way. It takes hours, but Vanessa finally creates what she calls Cybertrap, a defense mechanism that takes the form of a cyberpunk rabbit. Activating the program, Cybertrap knocks Glitchtrap out of the Springtrap remnant and the two clash, with Cybertrap coming out on top. Mike and Vanessa escape. Sammy Emily finally brings an end to the Fazbear Entertainment legacy, closing the company for good. In 2028, Mr. Happy would go back on his word on never letting the Happy Pizzeria franchise return and allowed his daughter to open up a new trendy and hip location called Popstar Pizza Place. The new location features a brand new line of animatronics known as the Popstar Animatronics, which are designed to be modern, sleek, and fashionable. The new band features the return of Lily the Rabbit and Happy Bear in new Popstar flavor, and they function as the lead vocalists. We are introduced to 3 new characters as well: Rhythm the Raccoon, Jazz the Cat, and Wendy the Wolf. As a guard works his way through the nights, he'll start to notice something strange happening to the animatronics. They seem to be glitching and behaving erratically, even turning against him at times, except Lily, who we find out will help protect him. It soon becomes clear that someone is tampering with the programming. He eventually discovers that one of Edward's pupils, who is working undercover at the new location, has programmed a new Fox animatronic to act like and believe that he is the deceased Edward West. The endoskeleton of this animatronic, known as Eddie, is hiding somewhere underneath the location and hacking the Popstars to turn against the guard except for Lily, who fights it and protects him. He must survive the night and stop Eddie from taking over the Popstar animatronics and using them to exact his revenge on Mr. Happy and the rest of the staff. In the final encounter, the guard faces off against Eddie, but even after defeating him, he realizes he's not truly gone. Mr. Happy returns to the ruins of Popstar Pizza Place, which has been rebuilt by Eddie and his new cast of animatronics. These new animatronics are called the Deadly Ones, and they are a grotesque mix of machinery and synthetic flesh. They are designed to be even more dangerous than the previous animatronics, with razor-sharp teeth and claws that can tear through metal and flesh alike. The Deadly Ones are led by Eddie. He is more powerful and twisted than ever before, driven by his desire to exact revenge on Mr. Happy and anyone else who wronged the person he's programmed to believe he is in the past. Mr. Happy must navigate through the twisted halls of the location, dodging traps and outsmarting the Deadly Ones. As he gets closer to Eddie, he must face off against each of the Deadly Ones in turn, defeating them one by one to get closer to his ultimate goal. In the final confrontation, Mr. Happy faces off against Eddie himself. The battle is intense, with Eddie unleashing all of his power and fury against Mr. Happy. But in the end, it is Mr. Happy's determination and courage that win the day. He manages to destroy Eddie and put an end to his twisted plans once and for all. The Happy Pizzeria story ends with Mr. Happy walking away from the ruins of the Popstar Pizza Place, finally free from the horrors that have haunted him for so long. He vows to never let anyone create such twisted animatronics ever again, and he retires from the business, content with the knowledge that he has saved countless people by defeating the Deadly Ones. And with this, the entire timeline is now complete.